Right. So welcome to the contributors meeting, 28th of March for OpenFaaS, and any wider community is welcome to come to this call too. Agenda for today, wanted to do some like roundtable updates, find out what people have been working on, where you're at with your contributions, any PRs that need pushing over the line, any help you need. So we'll do that first, now that we've got the names in the doc, and we'll look at the roadmap for OpenFaaS, just to see what are the things that are currently being worked on, what direction we're moving in. I want to give you a demo of the event connector pattern. Been talking about this a little bit, and the example that I've got uses Kafka, and the idea is we can start consuming events from Kafka into OpenFaaS really easily. And then I wanted to go over a few help wanted items where I need you guys to get involved or need a bit more input from the community, and actually pick up some of the work, and then any Q&A that we've got. So my travel will be, I'll be out for a week starting around the 7th of April in the US on the West Coast. The Cisco DevNet Create event. Eric is flying out to meet me there and help me with a workshop. Jock is part of the organizer, Jock Reed from Cisco. We're going to be doing an OpenFaaS talk and an OpenFaaS workshop with the stuff that a lot of you guys have helped us build out and test. Next event after that is KubeCon in May in Copenhagen. If anyone's going to be there, just shout. It'd be good to meet up with you. And same again for DockerCon in June. So we'll go into the roadmap, but first of all, let's do a quick round table and get some updates. So we've got me up there first. So Alex, what have I been doing? I'm about to show you some of the stuff that I've been doing. I've been looking at basically providing support for the project. There have been a lot of people on GitHub asking similar kind of questions about timeouts or auto scaling, etc. And I think part of how we're going to be able to answer a lot of those questions is through the new docs website, docs.openfaas.com. And this is starting to take shape. It's got a few sections in it already about deploying to Kubernetes, and there's some stuff about the architecture. The other main thing that I've been doing is building out this Kafka connector, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. So that's my update. Now, Kendrick has joined VMware, I think, a week or two ago, and I don't know if you want to just say a few words about what you're doing now, or
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the first meeting that I'm joining here. So I joined VMware a few weeks ago, coming on as a technical product manager for open source. I'm still trying to figure out what that actually means. But with this, it's looking at a lot of things like Kubernetes, and one of the pillars that I'm also trying to rally behind is figuring out what do functions look like up on top of Kubernetes, as well as VMware products like PKS and vSphere. And so I'm trying to figure out how I can align more with learning everything within here that's happening in the OpenFaaS world.
Great, thanks. Ivana is also at VMware on a small team with me, helping to contribute to OpenFaaS. Do you want to give an update?
Hi. Currently, for last weeks, I did some bug fixes for Explorer. I am updating the labs for the next conference. I think that Alex used them in Bratislava for the OpenFaaS demos. I was currently updating with scaling. I had some good example for CPU and memory usage, which we postponed for later because, as we discussed, that we will need to keep it updated for different languages, so dropped it from now.
Great. You know
yes.
what you're going to work on next?
I have to check my list. I've been on a Borathon competition for 2 days, for 24 hours, if I have to be exact. So
Great.
a
What's the
little
topic?
disconnected. We created something like a GitHub appreciation to contributor appreciation to if you're a maintainer of a project. You can, and you like someone's job, someone's pull request, or triggered issue, etc. You fork our project and commit an appreciation that appears in his page if the person has GitHub IO, and this can be something like rating.
Nice.
So this was the last 24 hours.
Great. I look forward to hearing a bit more about that towards the end of the week. So let's just skip ahead to Eric real quick. Because Eric, you said you need to go soon, so let's get an update.
Okay, so my name's Eric. I've been on the project since September, and like Alex said earlier, I'm going to be going down to San Jose to Mountain View for the Cisco DevNet conference. I'm pretty excited about that. Should be a good time. And been looking at recently, I've been testing out the changes for the Kafka connector, and just started looking at the MongoDB function as well. So I'm trying to get that working, and then going to be looking for if there's somewhere where I can maybe provide some value there, make some changes. We'll see.
Changes around what?
See if there's any improvements that need to be made to either the Kafka or the MongoDB, something like that for the event processing.
Okay, cool. Yeah, there's a new blog post that I wrote about how to use MongoDB with an OpenFaaS Node.js function. And the idea is to try and make it efficient so that you can use a connection pool. And there's a short video that goes with that too. I'll send it around later. Yeah, great. Thanks, Eric. Looking forward to seeing you in April. John?
Yeah, hello. So headed to a couple more conferences, one on Friday and then one on the meetup on Tuesday. I've done just a few small PRs, put out some of the conference links and blog posts on the community page, and then just a small PR to fix a typo on the workshop page. Looking at issues and pull requests, it seems like there might be a need for some unit tests. So I saw a link maybe in Slack about getting up to speed on Go. So I thought I might look into getting up to speed on Go and writing tests.
Yeah, that would really make a big difference. That's one of the items that I've got in Help Wanted later on. And there's some other tests that are like end-to-end tests that maybe don't have to go as deep or a bit more black box, but also really useful for checking regression. So thanks for doing all those talks. I got a T-shirt on the way out to you, so you'll get that in a week or two.
Okay, great, thanks.
Charlie Pitkin.
Hi, working currently on a PR for the doc site, tweaking some of the current work that Alex already did, updating the deployments, adding some styling, changing a little bit of wording, and things like that. So I should have that finished here pretty shortly. And then probably adding some more improvements to the doc site around getting up and running for contributors, so that we can make sure that they know what repos to download and things like that, so that they can, making contributing easier for somebody that's new to the project.
Yeah. So I think that would be really, really good if Anna had a similar idea as well of maybe having a shell script or something that you can copy paste that just gets all of the main repos people are likely to work on, like the store or Kubernetes and what have you. Yeah, that would be great. So, Burton, you say you're on on no audio?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was just busy at work at the moment, but Yeah, so I've been part of the project since about October. Currently working on migrating your post about the MongoDB with SQL Server. And then this weekend, plan on putting the OF watchdog through its paces, see if I can find where it's breaking. Really like to get that out into the open with the HTTP mode and all that. It sounds really exciting. And then currently working on a pull request to prevent duplicate function names in the YAML files with the append mode. So working on writing unit tests for that right now.
No wonder you're so busy. That's, that sounds great. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Cool. Okay. So I just saw Vivek and Stefan have joined. Vivek, would you like to tell us what you've been working on?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So I have been part of this project since last October. Right now I am working on introducing info endpoint to providers like Swarm and Native, which can be used by Gateway to show what version of a Swarm provider is running, either Swarm or Native.
Yeah. So basically, Vivek's been working on a new endpoint for the function providers that can give you system information. It will tell you what the version is, what the orchestration platform is underneath it. And then when we need to do something specific for Nomad or specific for Swarm, we're able to do that and get just better logs as well. So I've merged your PR on FaaS Swarm, and I think there was just a tiny bit of feedback on the FaaS Netes one for you to look at.
Yeah, so I'll update that today.
Thank you, that'd be great. And Richard, do you want to give your update real quick?
Yeah, I've just got a couple of PRs on Derek, one around secrets and one enabling a multi-label command. So rather than issuing 3 commands, we can issue 1 command with 3 labels. Yesterday, quickly put together a store submission of Stefan's Certinfo function for ARM and made a multi-architecture image out of the 2 images as well. And then just before I joined this, I was amending the ARM deployment guide, which I should be able to PR later this evening.
So for everyone else, Derek is a bot we've got that basically helps manage the project. Enables anyone who is in a certain file to be able to manage GitHub issues and that kind of stuff and PRs. Yeah, thanks for that. I think I need to look at the secrets PR if that's ready and try and get that merged and deployed. Stefan?
Hello. So regarding the Certinfo, I think you got the old code in. So if you want to do the ARM image, please use the latest code. I've added that output JSON option to it.
Is that on GitHub then? So I cloned your repo last night to build the image.
Yeah, I've seen your comment and I've commented on it. I think I didn't commit the change. I think I committed the change after you made the fork.
Okay.
Other news, I've managed to port all the FastNetEase features to the new CRD controller. I've tested the CRD controller on ARM and EMD64. What the test involved is use the FaaS CLI to deploy, delete, list all the API calls. I've used curl to test directly the API calls. I used the UI. And finally, I've used kubectl to do operations with functions. So this takes around 4 hours. It's a very time-consuming operation to test everything, even if there are only 8 API calls. But using all these tools, having ARM and AMD 64, yeah, it takes a lot of time.
Yeah, it's not easy running a big project, is it?
Yeah, it's about the fact that we have no automated integration tests with Kubernetes as a backend. I've been looking into that, how we can run Kubernetes with Docker inside Travis CI. I managed to do that, but the problem is you cannot use the image built locally. So basically, you'll use the virtual machine inside Travis CI to build the image, the new image. But the Kubernetes that has been spawned inside that Travis VM will not be able to access the local image. So you have to push the image somewhere temporary.
Yeah.
And test that. And
okay,
I didn't have time to do this last bit. Maybe I'm thinking spawn the Kubernetes cluster, deploy a private registry there, and deploy the local build image to the private registry so I can run the integration test inside.
I could see something like that working.
The good news is
tests, though, the only trouble is I'm struggling to get people to contribute to them, including the unit tests. So that's part of what I'm going to cover a bit later on. Also give you a quick demo of the end-to-end tests that we've got at the moment. But yeah, I would open an issue on the main FaaS repo, Stefan, and list some of the ideas that you've had and what the goals are, you know, in your own mind of what you want to achieve.
Yeah, I first want to validate the idea that this can actually run inside Travis CI, or we need someone to sponsor a little cluster to do our own integration tests. Right now, it takes like 7 minutes to create the actual cluster inside Travis CI, and if all the integration tests could take a very long time, I think the free version is not enough.
That is the nature of testing distributed system. I remember the Docker CI used to take well over an hour for every PR, and the fewer integration tests we can have, the better, especially with the wide amount of pull requests we're getting. Maybe there's more we can do in unit tests or in sort of tests that are closer to the code, but yeah, we need something at a broader level as well so that we can get a bit more confidence. So I think that's everyone. Is there anybody who hasn't had a turn yet? No? Okay. Well, these notes I've shared in the OpenFaaS Slack so you can get back to them easily. So I want to talk a little bit about the roadmap. And I've got a diagram here, like a little mind map, which I sketched out. Now, this is just what's already on GitHub and the Trello board, but I just tried to put it in one place. And then what I've done is I've just put some highlighted triangles or rectangles around the stuff that we've been looking at recently. So if you look at the bottom left, it says OpenFaaS there. Out from that, you've got a box that says tuning. So over the last couple of weeks, we've had a few people come to the project trying to do load testing. So I've spent some time doing tuning. Stefan's had a hand in that as well. We've done some things like invoking the functions directly from the API gateway instead of through the separate provider. That got us an increase of 2 times throughput. Using the Go HTTP client instead of the Go reverse proxy meant that we didn't get any non-successful messages in Docker Swarm. There's some other things we can do around there. One of the big ones is what Burton mentioned, which is this OF watchdog. It's the next version of the OpenFaaS watchdog, that component that sits in every container to make it serverless. Along with that came some language templates that allow us to do more things. So you can set HTTP status code, you can set headers. I'll show you a quick example of that. Off the back of that, we've also done some changes to allow a graceful shutdown. So if you scale 200, or let's say 20 functions down to 5 or down to 1, the moment I think they would still accept connections even though they're terminating. And so this change means that it gives whatever's in flight a chance to finish, and then it shuts down gracefully. Over on the left, we have the ecosystem. And around the ecosystem here, we've got the documentation site and the workshop. So the workshop, I think we've had some really good feedback around that. I'd like to see it grow a little bit, but I think it's probably in a good place right now. Ivana's adding a bit more content, and then we'll get some more feedback at DevNet next month. The doc site, I showed you that really quick. The doc site, I think, is going to really help the project. You know, we say that we're developer first. That's one of the core values, that we want to be operationally simple and put the community first. Well, this is a great way to do it. But I do need your help with that. And it may be just taking something that's already written down in the main markdown somewhere and bringing it across. Might be proposing a new docs page. At the top of the ecosystem, we have the store. I've not seen a lot of activity around that recently. It might be good to get some more functions in if you think you could do that. And then we have Kubernetes and the CRD. So Stefan spent, I guess, 90 to 100% of his time working on an enhancement for Kubernetes called a custom resource definition. And I've added a link where you can look into that a bit more. And then over on the right-hand side, we have this idea of getting events into OpenFaaS, different sources of events. So I'm going to show you the connector pattern that I've put together. And the idea here is that we'll have some generic way of accepting events from any source into OpenFaaS without having to necessarily hack on the code or break the interfaces. And I've started with Kafka. One of the things that would be great to have there next is AWS, right? So we can get the events from DynamoDB or whatever it is piping into OpenFaaS. So any questions about these items, what we've been working on, or is there anything else you want to see here? Okay, well, feel free to respond on Slack. So Stefan was talking about end-to-end testing. Now, in one of these terminal windows, I've cloned down a project called Certifier. So this is just OpenFaaS Certifier. Inside here, we've got some tests written in Golang. This one's called deploy test. What it will do is deploy a well-known Docker image and checks we get the expected status back from the gateway when we post it. And then it will list the functions to make sure that that one was found. One of the other tests here checks that when you pass a custom environmental variable, that you get the value back from that. Cheers, Eric. And it checks to see if that value's in the output. It checks to see whether a query string gets passed through correctly. And actually, I'd introduced a small regression into the gateway recently before that version really got used by anyone. And Stefan said, hang on a minute, where's the query string? I'm not seeing it anymore. So I was able to go in and write a small test to cover that. And we're running these through CI. So just a quick demo would be, if you look at the make file, we should just be able to go make test. So we don't have any existing services. Make test. We don't have a command called time. Okay. And you can point this at a gateway URL. So if you are running that through Travis and it happens to be a remote one, that's okay. And you can see first test ran quite quickly, deployed one of the functions, found it in the list. The next one, it was doing a not found. So it will put in a really bad function name that won't exist, checks that it gets the correct response. And then here's some of the other tests. Now, when you're doing these tests, because it end to end, there's a lot of problems around latency. Like you test it on your own machine, it maybe takes half a second. You deploy it on AWS, it might take 2 seconds. So there's a retry loop in here too. And so this test actually passed. Eventually, it just took 7 goes before it was ready. So I'll paste the URL for this repo into the notes. And this might be something that's useful for you guys to run. And actually, if you're changing some code, go ahead and add some more tests if you can, or if you find a bug. Any questions about these tests? Okay. Have a browse of the code. I'm sure there's some ways we can improve it. The next thing I wanted to show you was the event connector. And this is what I was talking about, being able to consume different events. And I have a quick sketch here, which is also available on the docs page for this GitHub repo. Now what we have, if you look on the right-hand side first, is you've got your API gateway, and there's 2 functions deployed there. First one's called billing audit, and it has a label of topic, and the value of that label called topic is payment. The second one there is called email welcome. That's a function, and the label there is a topic of sign up. So the idea is that the function can be deployed and it can say, you know, I care about these topics, and it can put a comma delimited list in there. Now, one of the alternatives would be to store the links between topics from an event source and function names in a database or in some other state. But right now, by storing it in a label, it means we don't have to add a data store, and Kubernetes or Swarm will actually look after this metadata for us, and we can query it later on. So that doesn't need any change to the API gateway. On the left-hand side of the screen, we have the Kafka connector, which is a Golang process. Now that connects to what's called a broker, and it will listen to either one or a whole bunch of different topics. So let's say it's listening to payment and sign up, 2 topics. So generally how microservices work when people are using Kafka is they won't really have communication between services direct over HTTP or gRPC. They'll broadcast all the messages that happen to Kafka, and then something listens to Kafka to react to it. Okay, so in this example, we subscribe to the payment topic and sign up topic, and then we've been able to build a map in memory, that build function map, that says, right, if you get a message on the payment topic, this is the function that you should call, and it says billing audit. Now, the way the Kafka connector is able to build that map up is by calling the API gateway, and it says, give me the functions that you've got right now. It then looks at the labels, extracts any that are there, and then builds that table. That's then cached in memory until we refresh it. So if you get a message that comes in, like in the bottom left-hand corner, where it's on the topic called sign up, and it has a body attached to it with a user ID in JSON, first thing that will happen is the connector will look up that map, and it will say, right, sign up is a topic. It then looks across, finds it needs to call the email welcome function, and then it will invoke that on the API gateway, posting in the body of the message that came from Kafka. So in effect, it allows us to take any event from Kafka on a topic and map that to a function. We could do a similar thing with AWS, simple notification system, or with RabbitMQ. I was going to show you how that works. I've actually deployed this already over here. So this is in a separate GitHub repository called Kafka Connector on the OpenFaaS incubator repository. I'll give you another link for that. And inside there, there's a README file. It tells you how to deploy this on Docker Swarm or Kubernetes. I've actually run the build script, and that's given me this Kafka service and Zookeeper, which are just standard components. But the interesting bit is the connector there. And if we look at the logs of the connector, you can see that it's just been sat there syncing up the topics. Right, so going back to the picture, it's saying, right, give me all of the functions that you've got in the gateway, and then it's building this map. We then have a couple of functions deployed. I've got one called Figlet, and Figlet is able to just give you an ASCII logo. Now that has a label applied to it of topic FaaS request. It's just a topic that I made up. And then what we can do with that is trigger it. So these are the logs of the Figlet function right now. I've shown you the logs of the connector. And what we need to do is just write some data onto that Kafka topic. The easiest way to do that. Easiest way to do that is to use the snippet from the README file, and then every line that you type in will be a request that goes through to Kafka as a topic. So you might have something like user ID 1, the JSON body, and we should be able to see, looking at the logs of the function, that just got called. So we didn't say to the connector, you need to call the Figlet function. Just said, listen to these topics, and when you get a message, go to your map and find out what function belongs to that topic, and then invoke it. So, does that make sense?
Yep.
Yep. So let me show you another function example. This is how you deploy a function from the OpenFaaS store using the CLI. Now, I'm just going to see if we have node info in here. So we've got node info. If I do FaaS store deploy node info, tell it to go to the gateway of where I have OpenFaaS running, and say fire on the same topic. So this is the label that we're applying. That's now being deployed, and next time that the code runs to build this map, it's going to have two different functions under the topic. So if we try this again, and I type in verbose, we see the text has come through to Figlet, and if we look at the logs for node info, as long as the cache has been invalidated already, we should see that one get invoked as well. Yeah, so that's the function that ran just then, and it's been triggered off by the connector. So if you imagine a large-scale production system, the kind of data that may be coming through here could be people that have signed up for your product, people that have put an item into a basket, and perhaps every time they add an item to their shopping cart, what you're going to do is fire off some auditing into MongoDB, or maybe you start to update their session. And so you can start to use functions to build out some of that functionality as well. Any questions about how this works or how to try it? Okay, well, I pasted the code into the notes, so you guys can go have a look at it later. I I think this is going to really help the project, particularly when people are deploying OpenFaaS to somewhere like AWS. One of the things that you may have coming in here might be from DynamoDB. So you've just inserted a row into the database, will kick off the function. Maybe you've added an image into an S3 bucket and you now need to run a function to process that. So relating back to the roadmap again, the concept of the HTTP templates. This is the new version of the OpenFaaS watchdog that allows you to set much more context about what's going on inside of your function. So I'm actually showing you a snippet from an Alexa skill here. And if you look, you'll see that rather than just returning a binary value or a string from your function, we're able to call context and pass some extra metadata back. So I'm telling it specifically what status I want, what HTTP headers should come back, and then I've got this utility method succeed. There's also one called fail, and if you call that, you'd get a 500 back. So as many of you have written OpenFaaS functions already, you'll be familiar with the old format. This is the newer, richer format, and we've got templates available in this style for Node, Python, Go, C#, and Java. One of the things they need is a lot more testing, because when we move to a new signature for these functions, we've got to commit to it. And I don't know if this is the right signature yet until we start using it, kicking the tires, and finding out what we need to do with it. I'll get some links for these. The Node.js template, there's a great example of this in the MongoDB blog post that's in the notes you guys can look at. So just want to finish up the meeting really, and can get any other questions that there are, and say help is needed. This project doesn't run itself. I know a lot of you have really helped over the last sort of 12 months with the project, but there's a ton more work left to do. One of the things that uses up most of my time is giving free support to people on GitHub. So there's a guy who needed some help with timeouts, and I must have spent about 2 days trying to reproduce a scenario and go through that. Now that means I can't be doing the doc site or any of the other interesting things that you guys want to use. So if we're able to spread the load out a bit, this will really help. One of the ways you might be able to do that is by starting to learn how Kubernetes works. I think that as we progress through this year into next, there may be less of a focus on Docker Swarm in the wider community. And so if you're familiar with Kubernetes or not familiar, learning the basics could be a smart move, and it will help you support the project better. I talked about unit test coverage. Stefan was saying how he spent 4 hours doing really detailed testing. Well, what if we could automate some of that? I wrote some tests recently for the API gateway. It'd be great to get even more. And that can also bleed into the providers, like the code for Swarm and Fastnetis. The Certifier tests probably easier to write if you're coming at it fresh. And you see they do things like deploy a function and try and invoke it, make sure it gets the right response. They may try to scale a function and check that the amount of replicas are correct. When I say test, the new watchdog and HTTP templates, that's going back to this slide, and give you instructions how to look at this. Basically, you know, I can see Burton really wants to see this become the main way we do functions. They are quicker, they're more efficient. They have things that people have come to expect from functions, like HTTP status codes. So any help around that, if you think you're able to do that, even Hello World would be really beneficial. And then the last place where I'm really looking for help is around the documentation site. I think there's some clear things we could add there that will really help people out. I've put use of constraints labels, and that's supposed to say limits. A constraint would be where you only can run the function on one kind of node in your cluster. Labels are stuff like the topics that we were just looking at. And then limits would be where you limit the amount of CPU a function could use. We could do a good job of explaining that and centralizing it on the doc site. Maybe something Stefan might be interested in looking at is, and Ivana, is documenting the current auto-scaling as it happens through Alert Manager. Now that runs on Kubernetes, Swarm, or Nomad. It doesn't matter. But it'd be great to just write some clear documentation about that, a couple of paragraphs, and then how that differs to Kubernetes' own pod scaler, HPA2, which I saw from a blog that Stefan had wrote, you can already start using with OpenFaaS, and it might do a better job when you're using Kubernetes. So I know a few people have dropped off, but if who's left, is there anyone who wants to help out with some of this stuff?
Hi guys, Bart here. I would definitely love to help with unit tests. And I have the biggest amount of experience working with Kubernetes. So if anybody wants to help or something, I could definitely help with that too. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be great. There's various opportunities, I think, looking at what gets used the most, like the code that proxies from the gateway to a function. I added some tests to that recently as I found a couple of defects. If we have them covered with tests, it means that we can guard against that happening again.
Oh, perfect. I don't have any experience with Docker Swarm, so I won't help here, I think, but fastnetters and API Gateway, definitely I can help with.
Okay, that's cool. Appreciate it. Is anybody interested in looking at the new templates?
Hi, John here. I can start to look at some of the templates, and once I get up to speed on Golang, I can look at unit test coverage as well. And I've been mostly using FastSwarm, so could potentially help out with that as well.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. I mean, even just standing up OpenFaaS on your Raspberry Pi cluster when you're done with your meetups with Kubernetes or deploying it in the cloud, DigitalOcean, it's a good way to just get a bit more exposure.
Okay. Yeah, and I've got all kinds of free credits on Azure as well. So
yeah. So no, John, you saying particularly that you come from a .NET background.
Yes.
We have a template that uses Kestrel under the hood with C#, and Burton was working on that. It would be great to get some testing around that and some validation. You know, how does it compare to Azure Functions? Does it do what you'd expect? Does it break? Do you like it? That kind of stuff.
Okay.
All right. Okay. And Charlie, if you're still there, I know you are working through some of this stuff on the documentation site. Are you interested in helping with some of this stuff?
Yeah, I will continue to work on the documentation and putting in some PRs and working on these things next, as well as adding contributor documentation as well.
Yeah, I'll add a point for that.
Yeah, regarding documentation, I would like to make the, I don't know, a production ready page with Kubernetes. I've made this in the past, but it's not, should be in the official documentation. And
okay.
I can use GKE and an on-premise bare metal setup for this. But I will start with GKE, but we should also have on-premise because, well, nobody runs in the cloud, so.
Great. I like that.
Also, I have I have made several setups with FluentD on premise, and I have a good idea on how to actually create a Helm chart for OpenFaaS, a complementary Helm chart, not modifying the actual Helm chart. That will deploy friendly Elasticsearch and everything on bare metal, so you can actually have log aggregation with OpenFaaS without modifying OpenFaaS in any way.
Yeah, I like the idea of that.
What I've been testing was if we, for example, if we switch from if we switch to JSON format for logs, we can also have out of the box alerting on logs. For example, GKE and other clouds will search for level error and will create an error event. Will trigger an alert for you.
Yeah.
Without doing anything. So that involves using a logging package that knows JSON, and we could put this as an environment variable. I want my gateway to log into JSON, and that's it.
Yeah, I saw a couple of comments that you had from there. I mean, I've been really busy trying to support people on the project. Yeah, that's one of the areas where I think everybody could probably contribute in a little way. Is somebody writes a message and you look at it and you think, well, have they given all the information that's needed? Could we just ask that person to give a bit more info before passing it on to me or one of the other core contributors? Have you seen the error before? Can you search to see if it's a duplicate and point them at something else? Can you even make a sensible suggestion of what they could try next? And sometimes that's enough. I'd love to get to the point where I'm not the one who's basically providing 100% of the support. And I think it's really helped with what Ivana's been doing recently, where she's gone in and even as one of the newest community members has been there sort of answering questions before I get to them. So anything that helps me get away from 100% of the issues is going to help a lot. Some of the things that you guys are interested in seeing happening and getting PRs merged, etc.
I think that we can, while I was writing previously, the issue bot function, and we can use something similar to automate answer, maybe trigger issues that don't have enough information and automatically reply, please fill in the template, and separating proposals or etc. This would help with reviewing issues, and we can just check the labels and look at the issues that are not populated with automatic reply.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Actually, I mentioned Derek. Some of you are familiar with Derek. I know Ivana uses it a lot. There are some suggestions here for that kind of stuff already, like this one. Check if they deleted the template for a pull request. Do the same thing with issues. A lot of the time I see somebody comes into the project and they just, whatever's in here, they just delete it all and put their message, or maybe they just put the title. It doesn't help us, and the first thing I'm going to do is reply and ask for that information to be added. So yeah, that would be really useful. And I think we're probably starting to look at some of that. Okay. Well, we nearly used up all the time. I appreciate you guys getting behind the project and helping out. Are there any other questions or comments, suggestions while we have 5 minutes?
Yeah, I want to mention something about logging. I've been testing a lot of logging packages for Golang, and I've settled to 0 log. So if you guys are interested in playing with that library, I would appreciate some feedback. I really like the fact that it does JSON logging, it has buffering, and it looks pretty nice to work with this package as well in code. It's not a lot of cluttering. Zero log.
Okay. Can you put a link to that into the notes later?
Yeah.
I just saw Rafael has joined, I think from Brazil.
Yeah, I'm from Brazil.
Nice to meet you. Bem-vindo. So, do you want to say hi? I think you joined a bit late.
Yeah, I couldn't catch from the beginning, but we've talked before. It's not my first meeting. I'm attending to.
Okay, cool. Is there anything you're interested in at the moment? Anything you're working on?
Yeah, I'm actually, I was going to talk to you later about, I'm giving a speech about OpenFaaS here in Brazil in 2 weeks, and I was thinking about using the workshop you just posted. And yeah, I don't know how to do the slides and stuff like that.
Yeah,
If you have any.
I probably have what you need on Google Drive. I'm going to share the link with everyone as well. I'll put it into the chat here and also on Slack.
Oh, thank you. And I'm gonna try to help with Kubernetes give the support.
No problems. That would be great. Support's really appreciated. Well, guys, I'm going to finish on a high. I think it was last week we had 6 people went and did presentations about OpenFaaS all around the world. I wrote a little blog post about it called OpenFaaS Roadshow, and I think there's been about 3 already this week, and we're only on Wednesday, and then Raphael's going to do one too, and then me and Eric and Jock will be doing one in April. So I think that's a really good sign. People really like the project. They're going and talking about it, and the reason they're doing that is because of all the hard work you guys are putting in and what you're adding to the community. Is really making a difference. So I really appreciate it. So I'm going to drop off now and I'll upload the recording later. Kenny, thanks for joining. Hope to see you a bit more. And hey there, Bart. Good to see you at the end. We're just dropping off now. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.